Battle Hill, St. Croix, Nova Scotia, which is part of Father Le Loutre's war. The Battle of Battle Hill was from March 20th to 23rd, 1750, a three-day battle, here at St. Croix, Nova Scotia. The Mi'kmaq militia, Maliseet, who were also called the St. John Indians, Acadians, which were the Ribble inhabitants, versus British America, in particular Gorham's Rangers, and followed by the 47th Regiment of Foot. The Battle of St. Croix was fought during Father Le Loutre's war between Gorham's Rangers and Mi'kmaq at Battle Hill, here in the community of St. Croix, Nova Scotia. The battle lasted from March 20th to 23rd, 1750. Historical context. Here is what the area looked like at the time. The 5 houses, and which is the site of the battle. Here, at the bend of the river. Despite the British conquest of Acadia in 1710, Nova Scotia remained primarily occupied by Catholic Acadians and Mi'kmaq. By the time Edward Cornwallis had arrived in Halifax, there was a long history of the Wabanaki Confederacy, which included the Mi'kmaq, resisting British colonization along the New England-Acadia border in Maine by attacking colonial settlements. The reason why is not only hatred for the English, but the French priests were paying 1,000 sols per scalp for any English settler or soldier. So it was the most valuable fur in North America. To prevent the establishment of Protestant settlements in the region, the Mi'kmaq raided the early British settlements of present-day Shelburne, 1715, and Canso, 1720. A generation later, Father Le Loutre's war began when Edward Cornwallis arrived to establish Halifax with 13 transports on June 21st, 1749. Within 18 months of establishing Halifax, the British also took firm control of the Nova Scotia Peninsula by building fortifications in all of the major Acadian communities, present-day Windsor, Fort Edward, Grand Pre, which was Fort Beaulogis, and Chignecto at Fort Lawrence, facing Fort Beausejour. A British fort already existed in the other major Acadian centre of Annapolis Royal, Nova Scotia. Cobequid remained without a fort. Nevertheless, there were still numerous Mi'kmaq and Acadian raids on these fortifications. On September 30th, 1749, prior to the battle, about 40 Mi'kmaq attacked 6 men who were cutting trees at a sawmill in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. 4 of them were killed on the spot, 1 was taken prisoner, and 1 escaped. 2 of the men were scalped, and the heads of the others were cut off. A detachment of rangers was sent after the raiding party and cut off the heads of 2 Mi'kmaq and scalped 1, who was probably carrying scalps himself. On October 2nd, 1749, in response to the raid in Dartmouth, Cornwallis created an extirpation proclamation to catch that 1 fighting patrol, not all Mi'kmaq. The siege of Grand Pre was the first recorded conflict after the proclamation of Cornwallis's bounty. In early March 1750, the Acadians and Mi'kmaq took 3 English prisoners. Gorham was ordered to Fort Edward. The Battle of St. Croix occurred when New England Rangers were en route to Grand Pre to arrest the Acadians who had supported the siege and the taking of the 3 prisoners. The 40th Regiment of Foot looked similar in uniform to the 47th Regiment of Foot at this time, except for the facings here would not have white here. On December 17th, upon recently building a road from Halifax to Grand Pre, Cornwallis ordered Gorham to clear the road of natives who might hinder communications. On March 18th, 1750, according to British accounts of the battle, a group of rangers under the command of John Gorham, who was a military officer, left Fort Sackville, now Bedford, Nova Scotia, under orders from Cornwallis to march to Pisiquid, in present-day Windsor. Their mission was to establish a blockhouse at Pisiquid, which is now Fort Edward, and to seize the property of Acadians who had participated in the siege of Grand Pre. not all Acadians, not all Mi'kmaqs. Arriving at about noon on March 20th at the Acadian village of 5 houses beside the St. Croix River, as we saw before, Gorham and his men found all the houses deserted. Seeing a group of Mi'kmaq hiding in the bushes on the opposite shore over there, the Rangers opened fire. The skirmish deteriorated into a siege, with Gorham's men taking refuge in a sawmill and 2 of the houses, like that one over there. During the fighting around Battle Hill, Rangers suffered 3 wounded, including Gorham, who was shot in the leg. He sustained a bullet in the thigh. As the fighting intensified, a request was sent back to Fort Sackville for reinforcements. On March 22nd, responding to the call for assistance, Cornwallis ordered Captain William Clapham's Rangers and Captain George St. Blow of the 40th Regiment of Foot, equipped with 2 field guns, to join Gorham in Piscataqua. The additional troops and artillery turned the tide for Gorham and forced the Mi'kmaq to withdraw. Aftermath. After the siege, Gorham and the additional troops continued on to Piscataqua. Arriving there, Gorham established himself as at the parish church of La Somption in present-day Fort Edward, and proceeded to scour the surrounding countryside in a search and destroy mission against the Mi'kmaq. He was trying to catch the guys who were firing on him earlier. Richard Berkeley wrote that between 1749 and 1755, Nova Scotia was kept in an uninterrupted state of war by the Acadians, and the reports of an officer commanding Fort Edward, Nova Scotia, indicated that he could not be conveyed to Halifax with less an escort than an officer and 30 men. In March 1750, the Mi'kmaq and Acadian militias killed Cornwallis's messenger, who was en route from Halifax to Chignecto. As a result, Cornwallis stopped sending small parties out of Halifax. Here we are again at St. Croix, at the actual site of the battle on Battle Hill. It's now the Minas Pulp and Power Company Limited hydroelectric development. Down there is the bend in the river where the 5 houses were. This